Councillors, officers, and members of the public, welcome to the 13th of May 2026 unscheduled council meeting. I'll start with the prayer. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Almighty God, be with us as we work for the people of the Shire of Mirrabel. Grant us wisdom that we may care for the Shire as true stewards of your creation. May we be aware of the great responsibilities placed upon us. Help us to be just in all our dealings, and may our work prosper for the good of all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. All councillors are present, with Councillor Bingham online. There are no apologies. There's no disclosure of conflicts of interest. Presentations, deputations, there are none. We move along to 7.1, consideration of the proposed 2026-27 annual budget for consultation. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm just noting in here that there's a $2 million in borrowings that's for the Bacchus Marsh Indoor Aquatic Centre, which I'm aware of, but we had, well, I was under the impression that we were borrowing $15 million to facilitate this project. The $2 million is noted under the capital program, which is unusual then to be put aside in borrowings when there's been an allocation of borrowings towards this project. So I just explain what the capital works are for the $2 million, because it's not obvious in the document. Thank you.
See ya.
Sure. What page are we on? Sorry, just if I could just get.
Well, it's in your introduction from the Mayor and CEO introduction. So
Yeah.
it's the very first item, but when you go to page 53, it's noted in the borrowings.
So through the chair, the reason why the amount of, you wouldn't see the amount of the full $15 million is in we would only draw down the funds as we require them. So that would be the first phase of a drawdown associated with the pool. So that's why you wouldn't see it all in the first year. We would try and phase those drawdowns as late in the program as we can.
Yeah, with respect to that, the question is, what are we building for the $2 million?
What are we getting for the $2 million?
What are you getting for the $2 million? And the $2 million that's allocated to the pool? You're getting a $50 million pool, and the $2 million is part of.
With respect, it's in a capital program here for $2 million. It's in the program here to say it's being spent on capital works. If it's going into a silo, wouldn't that be on a different page? Or is it a capital works program? Is it capital works or not?
I'm happy for James to answer. It would be a capital works program. Huh?
Yeah, it's a through the chair, it's a multi-year project, and that's the first year of funding for it to deliver it based on the schedule that the capital works team have developed.
With the ultimate respect, what is it? You can't just say it's $2 million that it's there for the start of the program. It must be building something. If you had a receipt for it, what are we getting for it?
You're getting the commencement of the pool.
Well, so next year it could be $10 million. That's the commencement of the next year. It's in capital works. We're allocating $2 million. The question is it being siloed for the pool, or is it actually going to buy something for the $2 million?
Yeah. Are you going to ask a question? Yeah.
I'm not going to get an answer, am I? So, thanks.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll have a go at answering that. So the total project cost is $50 million. The way we've profiled the expenditure of the project, we're profiling $2 million in next year, and in subsequent years, the rest of the $48 million. So the project would commence construction early in 20 27 under this program, and that $2 million would be going to paying for contractors to commence the project.
Councillor Tatchell.
Well, subsequent to that, then, we allocated a budget of $50 million for 1 year. And that was done 2 months ago, 3 months ago? Which means that come next April, does that mean it goes back into a new budget cycle, or does it get recosted, or? Because I still don't understand what, to me, the $2 million is just being siloed. We put millions of dollars into plans through engineering over a number of years. I just want to see what the $2 million, I think people are entitled to know, if we're taking $2 million of their road money, that we're actually getting something for it physically,
Yeah.
or we're siloing it, one or the other.
Yeah, I'm probably slightly confused. It's a multi-year project. When you're funding a multi-year project, you don't fund the $50 million, so you don't contain the $50 million in the first year. What you do is you do a project plan, and what you do then is you allocate the resources that are required for each of the years. The pool will at least be, if it proceeds, will at least be a 2-year build. So it will probably cross over 3 budget cycles when you kind of look at it. And what you would do is you would draw that money down. Good governance would say is that you draw down the council component of any borrowings as and when required. You don't draw down the funds until you actually need them, because you're paying interest on those funds. So you would draw them down as you anticipate they would be required. So the plan and the work plan that has been developed for the pool, should it proceed, would have a drawdown in year 1, year 2, and then in the final year. And in the first year, it's usually the smallest amount. Second year, depending on which way the grants have been allocated, because with the grants that we have received, the 25 million and the 10 million, which we've still to be clarified on the 25, but that was an election commitment. That 35 million, which we don't suddenly get $35 million into our bank account. What we have to do is submit to the government milestones, and once we introduce the milestones, then they pay us another component of the money. As part of those milestones, it will require a council contribution to each stage, but what we will try and do is push as much of our contribution to the end, so therefore we're not paying interest on that component. So we do have a QS completed. Now with recent events, that QS will need to be looked at, but it's only been done in the last 3 months, and that's roughly in line with the budget we've put in place over the next 3 years.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a few questions. First one relates to formatting. My question is, so on page 14, we have across the top heading, you've got 2024-25 actual, 2025-26 forecast, 26-27 budget. Yet elsewhere on the report, it just says 25-26 forecast, 26-27 budget. Why do we repeat? Why do we have 24-25 when it's ancient history? It's gone.
See ya.
I'm happy to take that. A few years back, there was a model budget that was developed. The purpose of the model budget is so that, in particular, around you can get consistency across all councils, so that if anyone is analysing all of the budget documents across the 79 councils, they will have a similar look and feel, whereas prior to the model budget, every council done them slightly different. So when people were comparing councils, it was more difficult. So that's why this is the format that is prescribed as part of the model budget. And what we do is we just adhere to it.
Well, it's illogical, because then later on we have the 25-26 forecast, 26-27 budget. Given this is the 26-27 budget, it'd be logical just to have this year and last year, not to go back to the year before, because it's history.
to put that in and give them that feedback. I think that's
Okay.
reasonable.
My second question is, why are we exploiting the exemption of the council charges from the rate cap? The government imposed a 2.75 limit on the overall rate take, yet some of council charges have been set well above the 2.75%.
I see.
An example, if you like.
Yeah, no, the cap is 2.75%. As you're aware, council's cost base is not necessarily reflective of the cap. So on average, we try and hit the 2.75%, but what you do is you do see different areas that you'll get different levels of movement, but overall, what we try and come in is with that 2.75. So in areas that have, at this moment in time, that have materials that are related to high price fluctuations, and the index that's used in Victoria as opposed to, say, the index that's used in New South Wales to calculate the cap, it's a different basket of goods that's used in New South Wales. It's more aligned to what a local government uses, where the actual cap in Victoria, even though there is some elements to it, is largely driven by CPI.
I guess my question comes from the fact that a lot of these charges aren't dependent on the council charges, not sort of dependent on external suppliers or whatever. So the question is, I mean, we have control over that, and I think it's just been exploited. Moving on to question 3, Mr Mayor, with your indulgence.
Yep.
Why is the waste service charge proposed to increase from $113 to $144? An increase of $31 or 27% increase. Noting that there are 19,415 rate assessments in Moorabool Shire, and using my little calculator, I come up with an increase of $601,000 increase in the weight services charge. Why? Or is it convenient to backfill other councils' areas of activity by increasing that council charge?
CEO?
That information was provided to councillors, so part of that increase, $12 of that increase relates to service, and then part of the majority of the remainder relates to a council decision that is pending that will relate to the expansion of the waste charge, and should that not go ahead, that fee will only go up by $12, which was provided previously.
It's a lovely segue. So basically, some of this increase is to fund the promises of free or subsidised waste charges that some councillors made. Is that correct? So basically, right, you take the 11 off, that's still about over $400,000.
I'd have to take that on notice because I had supplied those numbers previously.
So what I'm saying is that amount is being sort of glossed over in here without any trail as to how that's arrived at. And to say we've received it, that's not in this paper. This is what the public sees. Correct?
I'm happy to take that. Is it itemised separately? There is a component in there on the waste charge. It's how it actually is reduced and where it gets reduced, but the actual cost of that extra service is disclosed.
This increase in the weight services charge and that $600,000, you've said the $12. I've not seen anything else where that's come to us today over the year to say, look, this is blowing out, we need to cover this. It's not come to us. And I think it's hiding the amount buried in the document like that way, and I think that's really not appropriate. Also, number 5, Mr Mayor, if you like, I'm on a roll. I've got a half a dozen, so that'll be fine. To my mind, the budget comprises income and expenditure. In the draft papers, with the higher level income and expenditure set out at a global level, some of the income is not clearly denoted. Where is the rental from council-owned property shown? Where is the money from the wind farms shown? Where is the income from leases or property that council manages, i.e. Deaker land, that council is the committee of management? I didn't see that in that documentation.
See you.
That information was provided to councillors as part of briefings, but it's not, Councillor Sullivan is correct in saying it's not, doesn't form part of this exact document.
Mr. CEO, the general public doesn't sit in at our briefings. This is the document that goes out to the public. That's all they will have to look at. So I think it's important that that information is within that budget document to give the community a fair and reasonable approach just to understand what's going on. And I think that's poor. Okay, number 6 actually, I was going to say 5.5, Mr Mayor, but number 6, we'll move on that.
Councillor Sullivan.
Okay, on page 46, I'll direct you to page 46. There are reserves, both statutory and discretionary, noted. There is proposed transfer within 2 of the reserves, i.e. developer contribution and closed landfill reserve. These movements are $515,000 and $428,000 respectively. Why does not the commentary of the reserves denote why this money has been transferred and to what purpose?
See you.
I'm happy to basically amend the document to put that in. That's not an issue.
Well, not wishing to labour on things, but it should be there. I mean, if there's not even a footnote to say, all it says on the right-hand side on page 50, it just says what the purpose of those reserves are. That's it.
I'm happy to go through the document. It will be there in different places, but I fully understand that it should be linked to the table, and I think it would be more transparent. So I'm happy to take that on.
I'm done
basis.
for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tatchell.
I just want to, because it was a question within Councillor Sullivan's, and it also probably, just to clarify, I just need some clarification. When the fair go rate system came into play and we were working on a CPI cap on councils, and we were also working on a 1% infrastructure. So it was usually the CPI of, this was when it was set up originally. And it came to council that way, not for approval, but to be pulled apart and say, well, right, what do we do with charges? And there was most certainly a motion put forward that charges would be exempt from the cap, which I argued at the time. Many of us did and said, well, why would they be? Because if we're trying to cap something, and we've seen that in the latest document from where we see that overall council rates have gone up 19% in the last 5 years, which doesn't really equate to the issue at hand in terms of the rate cap. My problem I have now is that it's become less contained. At least in the beginning, we knew what that percentage was on each item, where we were prepared to put an increase that was relevant to the problem. And it could have been waste, it could have been whatever that problem was, where we would make it an exception or an anomaly on each item that was not subject to the cap based on the motion that was put forward to allow that flexibility. And that was to give the council and the people that run the budget some flexibility should they be hit with external costs, which they have been in terms of state government and what have you. So my problem now is that how do we equate that and how do we show that? If someone asks a question that 9 years ago or 10 years ago you were asked a question and a motion was put forward that you would allow discretionary flexibility within the rate cap on external costs, external revenue other than rates. If we were asked today, how do we equate that every year, would we be able to answer that with the documentation that we put forward on a yearly basis to say where is it? So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this because in my view, if you're going to put a rate cap in place, it should be a rate cap on everything and there should be an exception. And if there is an exception, it needs to be noted so you can go to the public and say, look, the rate cap on this particular charge was 2.75%, but these are the reasons why we need to take it to 5, 6, 7. But on some occasions, as we've just discovered, we've gone to 31% because there's an external problem that's not noted. But we still have to explain. And I want to make this very clear. that ultimately the Shire is not responsible for the budget. It's the people in this room. If it all goes south, this is where it lands. It doesn't land anywhere else. Exactly where it lands. It'll be our responsibility. So in my view, and we need to make sure that we've got all these documents in place when it goes out, so that somebody asks a question, in particular that one, that we can clearly and concisely say the reason why this has happened is because. And I don't think that's unreasonable. But if you have another way of doing it, I'm all ears. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Minari.
Thank you. My question relates to the question I asked in the briefing a couple of weeks ago. Just in regards to the first page on the budget, the page that everyone goes to first thing to see what's happening in their area, see what they get this year. Thank you for expanding it. I was happy to see that. Is there anything missing though? Is there any other detail missing that we should know about?
I see you.
Through the chair. We have just finalised sheets where we've actually gone through the resheeting and all of the individual projects to create sheets that will highlight those things. They weren't ready for today and probably not appropriate to issue them today, but we have gone through it line by line and itemised it and looked at what are an assumption on what councillors are interested in and what areas that they're associated with, and we've broken down projects in there. Those sheets have been produced and will be issued tomorrow.
Lovely, thank you.
Councillor Ward.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move the recommendation. And I'm happy to do so with a comment if I could, please.
Yes.
I've just checked the minutes of the unscheduled council meeting on the 15th of April. The minutes are online for the public to see. Council voted 5-4 to include the subsidised waste service charges in the budget and put them out for public consultation. Council voted 5-4 on the 15th of April to include them in this budget. And I move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
The comment made by my fellow councillor is not replicated in this paper. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. We have a mover. Another question? Any further questions? No? We have a mover in Councillor Ward. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Keogh. Is there any opposed? All in favour? Are you opposed? Councillor Ward, start off with your opening argument.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to approve the draft budget for public consultation. In particular, I want to start by commending the CEO and senior management and officers involved in the extensive consultation and thorough process that's been engaged to get to this point. I'm aware of some comments made about the disappointment in the process undertaken in last year's budget, and I note that the officers began work on this in November in 25, and in December 25 we had our first briefing on this year's budget. We then had a full-day planning day on Saturday the 21st of February, which most councillors attended. And since then, there's been a further 5 briefings, a full-day workshop and a presentation on municipal valuations. So we've had an incredible opportunity, and whether we agree with what's in it or not, or what's missing or not, we cannot say there was a lack of consultation. So I commend the officers for the work done in doing that. What we are now doing is approving the draft budget for public consultation, which is a critical example of this community engagement. Why I'm commending this budget: we need to support the ministerial rate cap at 2.75%. The 2.75% increase is not arbitrary, but it does align directly with the government's fair go rate system. And the rate cap, as we know, is recommended by the Essential Services Commission, and they undertake a review of price, quality, reliability of all services across Victoria: energy, water and transport. The other reason is the recent Victorian Auditor General Officers Report, VARGO, found that over the longer term, councils have not consistently generated sufficient operating surpluses to fund capital programs. The adjusted underlying results indicates that a majority of council would be in a negative position when grant timing is normalised. So, to me, we enter the 26-27 budget cycle from a position of discipline, credibility and strength, and the independent state government indicators consistently show that we are performing at or above sector averages across cost efficiency. For example, council expenses per head of population show we operate with expense list totaling 1,840 per resident, the lowest of similar sized regional and peri-urban councils. As another example, in 2014-15, we had 295 staff of a ratio of 1 staff member for every 103 residents. In 25-26, we have 358 staff at a ratio of 1 staff member for 115 residents. Yet over that period, our revenue has grown by 65%, population by 35%, our staff numbers by 21%. At the same time, Victoria's population has increased by 17%, state government employees have increased by 54%. So it shows that we're managing our finances prudently and we're making deliberate and forward-looking choices for our growing community. However, despite our strong performances, we face a fundamental financial challenge, and my colleagues in this room have spoken of this tonight and have spoken to this in past years. The cost of maintaining our growing asset base is crippling, and it's expanding faster than our primary revenue. We now have over $1 billion in assets, Mr Mayor, and over the last 5 years, this has created a widening gap, absorbing new revenue before it can be used to fund other services or initiatives. From 21 to 24/5, total rate revenue increased by 5.8 million. At the same time, the cost of depreciation increased by 5.01 million, or 45%. So after that increase in depreciation is covered, council has had $700,000 in net revenue over the last 5 years. That's $140,000 per year to fund all other increases across the organisation, and that includes wages, superannuation, insurance, materials, and growth in service demand by our growing population. So I'll quote my colleagues when I say I work for the community and represent the ratepayers. They're my masters, not the council. And that is why I think we need to support the 2.57% rate increase and send that out as our recommended budget for consideration by the community, as it's been deemed necessary by the Essential Services Commission and the state government. And it would, in my opinion, be irresponsible and have a detrimental effect on the services and facilities offered by the council if we were not to do so. So I'm wrapping up. The 26-27 budget has been prepared predicting 52 million in revenue from rates and fees, and that includes new properties. If we were to adopt, and I'd put this forward as an example, a 0% rate increase, we would forego approximately 2 million in revenue, and that would force service cuts, accelerate infrastructure depreciation, and shift costs to future generations. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I would have called a point of order on all of that because I'm just talking about the document that we're sending out to the public. That's a budget speech or a budget argument. But I've sort of got used to that sort of, anyone can just go on AI and just dribble away and pull some figures out and say that.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. To accuse someone of dribbling is offensive.
We'll stick to the paper in front of us.
I think anyone is not accusing somebody. I think anyone is anyone.
Yeah.
And, if they're less than anyone, well,
Yeah.
it's not my issue. The issue here is that this document, and the reason why I object, is that it's incomplete, and it's, from a logical point of view, when it goes out to our ratepayers, we need to give them all the information that shows where their money is being spent. And I want to remind people that it's their money, it's not our money. We have the privilege of distributing it. So all of that budget stuff can be held over to budget night, because I'm sure it makes for great television. All I'm concerned about is there are items within this document that is going out to the public for consultation that's incomplete. If we want to have a discussion about the budget, when the people have come back with their ideas or their issues, and we put it to that final budget, by all means, have the debate about the budget. But I'm not talking about the budget. I'm talking about the document, because that's why we're here. That's what I'm concerned about. Councillor Sullivan has brought up a number of items that, by the CEO's own admission, yes, we can add those in later. Yes, we can fix that. Yes, we can take it on notice. That says to me we're sending out an incomplete document. And that's what I'm arguing. First, we'll argue about the budget another time. The rate cap has nothing to do with that. The current economy has nothing to do with that. This is purely what we're sending out to say, this is the work that's been achieved. And we need to make sure that when someone picks it up, when Joe Ordinary picks this thing up and says, oh, there it is, they're going to spend X amount of dollars, it is clearly defined where that money is coming from because it's coming out of their pocket. I don't think that's too much to ask. So I'm not going to get into that rubbish argument. Next time I'll just point of order that sort of rubbish. But if you just get, can we stick to the matter at hand? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to place on public record my appreciation for the sound financial position that Derek and his team has accomplished for this Shire over many past budgets. I am also cognisant of the financial headwinds that we will face during the life of this budget. I am also fully aware of the ever-increasing cost of living that is imposed on our ratepayers. However, with no end in sight for the war in Iraq to finish, it is virtually impossible to estimate how much will we be burdened by the cost of fuel and bitumen in the coming financial year. And fuel and bitumen being two very essential elements of this budget. For these reasons, I believe it is prudent to adopt a rate increase of 2.75% as recommended, and I commend it to my fellow councillors.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. I think this is a budget debate going on at the moment.
Okay.
So again, can we stick to the paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Does anyone would like to speak for or against? Councillor Minari.
Yes, thank you. Just referring back to my question from a few weeks ago in regards to the list that we all refer to pretty much as soon as we get the budget. You know, the reason I spoke up about this the other week was, you know, I was sort of simplifying it in terms of, for example, a resident from Springbank or a resident from Kamida. You're going to go to the budget and you're going to try and look for something that helps you, that's something for your area or some, in the area or the roads that you drive on. So to me, the answers from the CEO in terms of the document still not finished, incomplete. So I would have loved to have seen the completed list. And also I can't ignore Councillor Sullivan's concerns, and of course they're my concerns. So that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Berry.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah.
At the moment? If we did defer this tonight, would the community still, and we updated the paper with all Councillor Sullivan's concerns, would we still give the public a month's consultation?
So, yeah.
There is time built into the time frame that allows for councillors to consider the community feedback. It's whether councillors want that time. That's the issue there. I mean, no, basically, if you want the time to consider the feedback, to have a briefing, it won't be done by the 30th of June.
I've got another question.
Councillor Berry.
then. So how long would everything that Councillor Sullivan's raised tonight, how long would you need to bring a paper back to us? Considering we could possibly, if councillors are all in agreement, that we could meet
That
in a few days.
information was provided to the councillors at briefings. What you're asking for is the document to be changed to incorporate that. I don't know. I don't have a time frame.
Another question, 2-3
Councillor
days?
So, yeah.
You don't,
how long it would take me.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against? Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would speak against it, and I'm only talking about the document, talking about 2.75. No one's talking about 2.75. It's already embedded into the thing. I think basically there's a lack of information in this document, and we're inviting the public to give feedback on an incomplete document. And I think we have to consider that it is, in my view, incomplete. I know it's been said we had consultation. There's a difference between consultation and listening to what people say. That doesn't necessarily mean that people are listened to and that's particular stage. I'll make that point. And we pride ourselves in transparency and openness. Well, why isn't those things in there? And I think the other thing which should be in this document, which I didn't think of before, is an index or a legend, so that the ordinary public can see exactly how something may impact on them. If you're, as Councillor Minari said, a resident from any community, you say, well, where do they impact it? What do they get? So I think, I just think it's incomplete, and I think as such, to ask people to say comment on it when you haven't got all that information there, as I said, that it riles me that the waste management charge increase of over $600,000. $600,000, which is a fair bit of money, I'll tell you. And I think that to sort of only to be advised tonight what some of that was for, I think that's not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak for or against? Closing argument, Councillor Ward.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I suppose I'd like to begin by a question, if I could. I've actually dialed into the last two meetings from overseas, but I know that, as I have mentioned, there's been the workshop, the presentation on the municipal evaluations, and there's been 5 briefings where we've had the opportunity to ask questions. And I know since I've got back that I've had the opportunity to, I've sought out council officers to ask questions about the budget. So was that invitation extended to all councillors? It was. So I find it particularly disappointing that tonight in a public forum, these questions that we've had the opportunity to ask over 5 months, raise any concerns we've had the opportunity to do so over the past weeks to get this document in a position that we feel comfortable sending out to public is done tonight in this forum. I think this has been, we talked about transparency and openness. I think it's been a very disappointing approach and quite disrespectful. I will just finish up by saying...
Mr Mayor, I think if you're going to start bandying around words like that, I don't think that's it. We're talking about this, and this is the closing debate on this item, nothing more. Thank you.
And I was responding to the comments about transparency and openness, Councillor Sullivan. I think this is a responsible budget, and I think an enormous amount of work has gone into it. I'll repeat my earlier comments. I'm very, very comfortable to support it, to go out now for public comment. I think the public, our rapidly growing population, will see that we have done everything possible here to try and continue to use our limited resources to invest in facilities and to maintain the facilities that will benefit from them. I think they will see that we'll be able to maintain the services that they rely on heavily. What particularly disappointed me about the state and the federal budgets, and this is not a budget pitch.
He was delayed in that, so you can finish off.
Yep. Is that we've relied on the state and federal government for their support to accommodate the expected population growth, 21,000 new houses, and that hasn't been forthcoming. So I think sending this budget out shows the community that we are very supportive of continuing the growth of Moorabool and providing the services and infrastructure they rely on, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. All in favour? Carried. I'm for. Moving along. Councillor Sullivan, any other business? No. Councillor Keogh, any other business?
No other business. Thank you,
Councillor
Mr.
Tatchell,
Mayor.
any other business?
I've got no business here.
Thank you. Councillor Minari, any other business?
Yes, I have a question, thank you. Just in regards to our council information bulletin this week, I just have a question for Councillor Ward. On Tuesday, the 26th of May, there's something that you're going to, I just would love to know some information about it. It's Hearts and Minds Technology with a Human Touch Conference in Lancefield.
With your permission, Mr Mayor, that was, I will check, Councillor Minari, before I leave, but I think it was on a newsletter sent out by the VLGA to all councillors, which appealed to me, so I asked Di to register me on that.
Okay.
But I will confirm at the end of the meeting and pass it on.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Bingham? No? Councillor Berry?
Business, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Berry?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just have a comment that about the peri-urban priorities recognised in the budget last night. I set up till 11 o'clock approving information coming through. So there was, I won't go through all what's listed. I've sent out to individually to all councillors. But suffice to say, we've got a little bit of a smile on our face, the peri-urban group today. Thank you.
Well done, Councillor Berry. Councillor Freeman?
No further business, thank you.
Councillor Ward?
I was actually going to commend Councillor Berry on the work she's done in her advocacy, not just for Cross Mirror, but for peri-urban in the last few years. And it was pleasing to see those results come through, Councillor Berry. So well done. It's a great result. And I've enjoyed my holiday, but it's great to be back, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Welcome back. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.